I've always enjoyed vertical gaming, from the classic arcades to a lot of scrolling shooters, and I've used many handhelds to be able to kind of emulate that experience by rotating the console on its side. Not anymore. Now we've got the MagicX 040, which has a dedicated vertical screen. But is it the answer to all of my prayers? So at long last, I have got my hands on the MagicX 040. This is a handheld with a bit of a difference. I mean, we can sometimes end up with fatigue from these things being released and one after the other, and there's not an awful lot between them. But this one, as you can probably tell from the image on the front, is something very different, and that is because of the orientation of the screen. Other than that, most things about it are very similar to other handhelds, but I've always had a bit of a fascination of vertical screens for doing vertical arcade games at home. I've even been known to tilt TVs on their side to make arcade cabinets with vertical screens. I've had this obsession with sort of vertical scrolling shooters and things like that for a while. So when I saw that this was announced, I was really excited. I've made kind of workarounds with handhelds in the past where you can kind of turn them on their end and use the buttons that way and have the screen this way around. You've even been able to do that with things like Donpachi on PSP, but to have a dedicated console to be able to do the vertical screen, the closest I've had for that is something like the flip grip on the Switch. But again, that is kind of like a workaround. This is a dedicated console to have a vertical screen, which does make it kind of niche, but it's a niche that I think appeals, and it's a niche that I think makes it really stand out in the very crowded market of these handhelds. That's something that really appeals to me, but I know that it's something that's put a lot of people off this one. As soon as I saw it announced, I was really excited about it. I did have reservations about the design. It felt a little bit like from the pictures I'd seen, like a bit of a lazy AI kind of design, that it was a little bit ugly looking in terms of the shape, but I was keen to try it just because of the screen. However, in practice, it's been a lot better than I expected. So I'm handling the box here at the moment just because I forget the names and all these things, so it's handier to have the box in front of me. It is an Android console for a start, so although it looks kind of like a budget handheld, it is an Android one, which means it has a touch screen, which makes it perfect for DS games as well. I think the DS emulation is going to be the real selling point on this, although I was more drawn in by the sort of vertical arcade stuff. I have to admit, I've been playing the DS quite a lot. This unit was sent to me by review from LITNXT. You can get one of those from their website. I'll link it in the description. You can get a discount with the code JoeBleeps as well. Processor is an all-winner Cortex A53 A113P, a 1.8 gigahertz processor. The memory, you actually get 2 gigabytes in this. Very often it is 1. Display is a 4-inch IPS full view screen, zero distance OCA, full lamination, resolution 480 by 800. It supports Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, vibration feedback built in. We'll get onto that in a little bit. Touch is fingerprint free, multi-touch. I beg to differ in terms of the fingerprints, but then that is my fingers. The battery is a 4,300 milliamp hour battery, which it says gives 5 to 7 hours of battery life. And to be fair, I've been getting really good battery life on this, including on standby as well. It's got Hall effect joysticks, it says here, but there's one joystick on it, which means there's magnets instead of physical connectors on there. So the box is a nice sturdy affair. It's got information about the console on the back, and I've already got the console out of the box, so no unboxing experience for you. Yeah, as soon as I had it in my hands and I felt it, first of all, it was a lot smaller than I was expecting, which made it feel much more compact, much more of a kind of pocket console, and also a lot less bulky looking than I thought it would. It's quite slim, and also, this is one of the things I like about it, it's really, really flat on the back. There's no ergonomic bumps and grips and shoulder buttons and everything else. Just flat on the back actually makes for a really comfortable grip. You'll probably know, if you're familiar with the Nintendo 2DS, there's kind of a 2DS feel to this, and having the controls like this is kind of similar, albeit with the D-pad up top and the stick further down, which I actually prefer. I think most of the games that you're going to play on this will be using the D-pad, and the ergonomics, just as it falls in your hands there, you're holding it like that. There's 2 speakers at the bottom, again with the standard kind of DMG emulation sort of slanted slots there for the speaker grills. You have got stereo speakers. They are pretty good. It's a little bit tinny, but it's nice to have the stereo sound, and also how your hands fall in place there. You aren't blocking any of the sound. The ergonomics, although it looked like a lazy design, they're perfect. Like the angle of this curve here just fits your hand just right. The curves on the edges make something that's very thin and flat not feel too sharp on the edges at all. You've got the inline shoulder buttons, which are handy when you need them. Your fingers just kind of fall into this spot, but they don't feel in the way at all. Little other subtle details like this blue power LED. Blue LEDs can be an absolute nightmare when you've got them facing your eyes and you're trying to focus on a screen. This is a really nice subtle glow. It's really diffused. I think it looks great, but it's quite a nice touch having the blue, makes it look quite modern. So the face buttons have got a very smooth surface finish. They're incredibly responsive, they're comfortable to use. I've absolutely no criticism of those at all. The D-pad I've had no problems with at all. There's a nice little dip in the middle to keep your thumb focused. And yeah, it's comfortable to use. I've had no problems with that. We've got a Hall sensor stick on the left here with a slight scoop, which makes it really good for grip when you're moving around on that. It's also kind of flush to the console. It's sunk right in there, so it's comfortable to use. It's not like a slider one like you had on a PSP. It's a proper stick, but it's sunk quite low into the console, so you've got quite a good sort of flat profile to it. On the whole, honestly, I was really impressed. Start and selector within easy reach for your right thumb. Also on top, you've got two USB-C sockets, one for connecting external devices and one for powering it and charging it. You've also got your headphone socket on top there. And on the bottom, there is nothing, which is quite good because there's nothing getting in your way when you're trying to play. On the left side is the volume buttons, plus and minus. And on the right, you have two SD card slots. It came with a 128 gig card in there and your power button. In terms of the volume, you can increase or decrease the volume because it is an Android touchscreen console. Once you start adjusting the volume, you can actually slide up or down with your thumb on that if you wish. Also, if you hold select while you are increasing the volume or decreasing the volume, it changes to the brightness. So you can decrease the brightness as it's doing there, or increase that to maximum there. And the screen itself is great, and the interface I think is really nicely designed. You've got like on each different console, and you can just kind of flip through those with your shoulder buttons. So if I just sort of cycle my way through here, you've got like the graphic up at the top, the little picture of the controller at the bottom. I think the whole layout is quite nice. So say for instance, if we go into arcade Tate mode games, that's the vertical mode, which is the thing that really drew me in with this handheld. You've got the kind of the game name down here that you scroll through, and it changes your artwork, your cover art, your screenshot, your logo and everything as you're going through there. So you can scroll through the games with your D-pad, or if you use your shoulder buttons, it'll skip through a few at a time. Dot on patchy there, so we can load that one up. And yeah, obviously when you've turned the screen on its side, it's quite a wide screen there. So you've got this blank area at the bottom. So it's got the main, whatever, logo at the bottom. And then you've got your main screen at the top. And honestly, I'm finding it really nice to use. If it's arcade games, you just press select to insert your coins. And then you can press start to get going. So we've got dot on patchy there. Start the game. Select the fighter. So you've got the option, you can either use the stick or the D-pad. With it being classic arcade like this, for the digital control, the D-pad I'm finding much better, but you've got the option for whatever suits you. What I am finding is that you've got a frames per second counter at the top, which is really good for seeing how well it is emulating. However, I can't figure out how to switch it off. So if there's anyone else out there who's got one of these or got a similar console where they know how to turn it off, I have checked the instructions that came with it. I have checked the internet. I've asked on the internet, and I got various answers that didn't really help me. So if anyone's got one of these and they know how to turn that off, I'm sure it's something really simple like holding select and X or something like that. But if you know how to do that, do let me know. But as you can see, having that vertical screen is fantastic. This is something that like was a major selling point when I had the... Oh yeah, obviously you can't pause your arcade games, but you can press the home button, which is just up near the D-pad there, to bring up your main menu to go through. So yeah, when I got the Miyoo Mini Plus, there was a way of rotating it on its side so that you can have the vertical screen, and that's really good. I suppose there are ways. I've seen that you can kind of, I can't remember whose video it was now, but I've seen that you can rotate it that way, and you can remap this stick to be the buttons, and you can kind of play PSP games and things. And I was thinking you could have kind of not had this stick and had some extra buttons and had it play this way. But to be honest, that would be to allow it to behave in just the way so many other handhelds do already. I think what's special about this is the vertical control. And I think the fact that hasn't been compromised to make it so you can also have it that way around is actually a plus on reflection. So when you bring up the menu, if you just, that's currently in the quick menu for doing most of your things that you need to do in the middle of the game. But if you come back out by pressing B, you go to the bottom of the list with quit, and it'll take you back out to your main screen. So we'll come out from there, and as we're going through our different ones, we'll load up, for example, because I've tested with this, the Game Boy, for example. Okay, so if we go in Game Boy, and I'll just load up Tetris. You can't always do this actually, but when you press and hold the shoulder button, it will scroll through games, which makes things a lot quicker to find. So if I go to Tetris and load it up, one thing I did find when I was first playing Tetris was the sound was very, I mean, most people wouldn't notice. I think it's only because I play so much Tetris. There was a very, very slight lag on the sound. But when you go into your menu and you go down to latency, you can switch on hard GPU sync, which kind of sacrifices performance a little bit, but keeps the sound a bit more tightly in sync, and it sounded much better as a result of having done that. So yeah, the reason I've loaded this up, and again, I've got my FPS counter that I really would like to be able to work out how to get rid of. To be fair, the size of this display, I don't think it really needs rotating, and a lot of things like Neo Geo Pocket, Game Gear, Game Boy have an almost square screen anyway. So although this is meant for the kind of the vertical screen, it's actually quite playable for things like this. So let's just have a very quick blast on here so you can see what I mean. I think that where the screen is positioned, the position of the buttons, how responsive the buttons are, I think, although I wouldn't buy it for playing things like Game Boy, it's nice to have the option there. So you're not just restricted to DS, you're not just restricted to these arcade games. You can play a whole load of different systems and just know that it's not going to be playing at its best with these things. I don't think you necessarily need to rotate the screen. I think to try and rotate the screen, to try and make it landscape, is kind of missing the point. I mean, I like having a problem to solve, that's always good fun, but really this is all about that vertical screen. But as you can see, it feels great, it's playing perfectly well. I think the positioning of the controls next to the screen is quite nice. We could do a similar kind of thing with Neo Geo Pocket Color. Again, with this, the screen is almost square, it fits really well. Your line of sight in terms of where your thumbs are works really well. The display looks gorgeous. It's a really, really nice display. We can also have the option of your full-blown Neo Geo. I reviewed the new Evercade Neo Geo handheld recently, been loving that, but yeah, being able to play these sort of games on here as well is great. And again, I think your aspect ratio for that, it just kind of works. I think it's quite playable. Yes, it's a small screen, but I don't think it needs any sort of rotation. And I think with having said that, I don't think I really need to talk much more about that, because when you are getting this handheld, you are not really getting it for these. It's a nice bonus, and it's nice to know that you can play these things, but there is a bit more to it than that. So before I go on to anything else, I think one of the things that struck me the most about this is when I initially saw pictures, I was under the impression it was kind of like a quite a cheap looking handheld, and honestly, like as soon as I got it out of the box, as soon as I felt it, like the plastic has got a bit of a slight textured finish, the build feels really solid, the buttons are great, the responsiveness of the D-pad, the Hall effect joystick, this kind of subtle diffused blue power LED, how neatly everything fits together. It is a much more premium feeling console than I anticipated. Also, couple that with the fact that it is an Android system, that it's got quite a powerful processor for one of these things, that it's got a touch screen. There is a lot going for it, and it is much more premium, high quality console than I had originally given it credit for when it was first announced. So I was excited about it already. And now honestly, I think this is one of my favourite handhelds this year, if not my absolute favourite so far. Now, I think the main reason most people will be interested in this is for the Nintendo DS emulation. It's awesome for the vertical arcade stuff, but certainly for DS, coupled with it being a touchscreen, I think it is awesome. I think the closest thing to this would be something like a hacked DSi or a Nintendo DS with an R4 card and all your games on there. But yeah, to be able to actually emulate it and to emulate it well, I can see that appeals to a lot of people. But there's loads of systems that this can play. Obviously, you've got the vertical arcade. It'll play your regular arcade games as well. Atari 2600, Atari Lynx, CPS-1, CPS-2, CPS-3, Dreamcast, Famicom, Game & Watch, Game Gear, Game Boy, Game Boy Advance, Game Boy Color, Intellivision, MAME, as well as the arcade, Master System, Sega Genesis, MSX2, Nintendo 64, Naomi Arcade, Neo Geo, NES, Neo Geo Pocket, Neo Geo Pocket Color, PC Engine. So there's Pico 8 as well, and obviously with Pico 8 your actual display is a square ratio. So on this it looks absolutely great. You're using quite a bit of your screen. Again, it pushes everything up to the top and I think it looks great and everything plays well. PSP obviously is going to be squished right down, so that's where your appeal of rotating it would come in, but again, I don't think that's really what you're going to be using this handheld for. There's plenty of other handhelds out there that you can play wider screen game. PSP Minis, PlayStation Classic, Sega Saturn, 32X, SG 1000, Super Nintendo, Wonder Swan Color. There is loads on there. But what we're here for is the Nintendo DS and of course the vertical arcade games. So let's just take a little look at how DS plays and how it looks. So again, this interface is great. You've got like all of your list of games there, and then at the top you've got screenshots, you've got the logo, you've got the packaging artwork, and that's consistent across all systems. Looks really nice. But the reason why I wanted to load this up is that it has a vibration motor built into the handheld as well, so you can get haptic feedback when you're doing any of your touchscreen stuff. Metroid Prime Pinball originally came with a rumble pack that you would plug in, so if you're playing on the DS, like I've got a DS Lite here, not only have you got the cartridge slot for your game, but there's also a Game Boy Advance slot, and your rumble pack would go in there and it would enable rumble on your DS, and I quite fancied trying it on this, but at first it wouldn't work. I couldn't quite get it to work. Now if you just look at the interface here, you've got the top screen and the bottom screen displayed, and there's kind of like a band across the middle there. So yeah, you've got that slight gap. I've seen people kind of reviewing this and showing you how to kind of remove that and stretch the screens a little bit, but I think what you'll find is that like a lot of the games were designed to factor that gap in. Again, if we look at this DS Lite here, you have a little bit in between the two screens. So it's not like your pinball, for example, or your character gets to this point and then suddenly appears here. It's like part of it is obscured from view. If you look at where this rail goes across and where it continues, if you squash the two screens together, it all starts to look a bit weird. So I'm quite happy with the gap between the two there. If you press on the home button, it brings up this little circular display at the bottom. So I was trying to get rumble enabled and it took me a little while to figure out how to do it. What I did was I went on menu and then went all the way into options, system. Notice I'm navigating my way around with the touchscreen. I really like being able to do that. And then you've got the option for the slot 2 cartridge type. So it actually emulates the Game Boy Advance slot as well, and you can choose a Game Boy Advance cart or nothing, or a SRAM cart or whatever else. So there's loads of options. You can have the official motion pack, or you can have the rumble pack, or so there's lots of different things there that you can enable. So I went on rumble pack there. So when I go onto the menu here and go on options, I am now able to choose rumble on, whereas when I first played it, it didn't have rumble on. Something weird about when I first played DS as well is that there was no sound, and I was trying to figure out what I'd done wrong, but it was basically default in the settings when I got it is sound was off for some reason on DS games. But again, I found that by going into menu through the system and then managed to switch the sound back on. So if that happens when you get it, fear not, you can just change that in the settings. But in terms of being able to play the games on here, it's really, really good. I've been enjoying playing this quite a bit. Been playing quite a lot of Professor Layton with solving all the puzzles. I wasn't sure how it would be in terms of responding to the finger-led touchscreen instead of a stylus, so I was thinking it might be worth getting a a stylus for working with an Android touchscreen, but the finger control is absolutely great. Anyway, let's have a little bit of a play on a single mission. So obviously there's quite a lot of games where you barely use the touchscreen at all. I can exit the game by going on menu and then quit. Come out there and choose a different game. For example, if I was on Meteors, I'll bring the orange down to the bottom there and it fires those off. So even on quite a fiddly one like this, you can kind of see what you're doing quite well and navigate your way through the game. So if you fancy a nice hidden gem game on the Nintendo DS, Thor, God of Thunder from the first Thor film is actually a really, really nice little game. It uses the top and bottom screen as you're navigating your way through the world. It was developed by Way Forward Games, who've got a really good reputation for having done some excellent games. So yeah, if you fancy something a little different on DS, definitely recommend that. I'm not going to ramble on too much more about this, but I think certainly if you got this with DS in mind, I don't think it will disappoint. As I say, I thought I might want to use a stylus with it for that authentic DS experience, but really using your fingers for the touch control works really well and it's really convenient. I think, as I said before, the size, the design, everything else of the handheld, my expectations were already kind of high, but I was expecting to kind of like it despite its failings, but really there is very, very little that I've found to fault with this. There was the fact that there was no sound when I was playing DS, but I've managed to fix that since just in the settings. I couldn't get the rumble working on DS, again, fix that in settings. And to be fair, I've not really had to dive into the settings much. So to put it in sleep mode, you can just press the power button once on the side and it goes in sleep mode. And I have done this, switched it off, left it off for a few days, come back to it, and it's only lost like, say, 20% of the power. It keeps the power really well, so I'm quite happy with that. I think in terms of storing it, I'll probably be able to find some sort of carry case to fit it in. Probably a 2DS carry case would work well because it's a similar size. As I said earlier, it's got Wi-Fi connected to my Wi-Fi, no problems. You can actually type in your Wi-Fi passcode, which makes things a lot quicker. It's got Bluetooth. I've not tried any Bluetooth audio, but I did connect an external controller to it. It doesn't seem to work as the main controller. I think it works as like a Player 2 or something like that, but yeah, there is very little to fault other than having my FPS counter at the top and not being able to work out how to switch that off. But as I said, I think this might be my favourite handheld so far this year. So there you have it. I have always wanted a handheld with a dedicated vertical screen. Never thought I'd end up getting one. I've found some pretty cool workarounds with a few other consoles in the past, but to have something that not only provides a vertical screen, but also delivers that experience so well, I am thrilled to bits. You can probably tell. I've been playing it all the last week. I can barely put the thing down. I think it's fantastic. I'm pleasantly surprised with how much I'm playing DS on there as well. I mainly got it, as I said, for the vertical arcade games. But if you are interested in either of those, or if you want something just a little bit different, and even safe in the knowledge that it'll still play a lot of other things like Pico 8, Game Boy, then it could be the console for you. I think the Android interface works really well on it. Having the touchscreen is just perfect for DS. I can't say enough good things about this. You can get it in black and you can get it in white at the moment. I chose black because there is a slight bezel around the outside edge of the screen, and I found that the black kind of hides that bezel a little bit more, but I think both of them look really nice. As I said before, if you want to get one, you can get one from LITNXT. They kindly provided this unit for review, and I'll leave a link in the description with the discount code if you need that as well. Obviously, you can get them elsewhere, also direct from MagicX, although as it says on the box, it is published by Ampone. Anyway, you can get it direct from them. There's lots of places that supply them. So yeah, I am absolutely loving this. This is now my second Android handheld. The first one I tried out was the excellent Anbernic RG557. I'm going to leave a link to my review of that up here if you want to check it out. Otherwise, I will see you in the next video. Take care. Bye.